Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here and watching us. I hope you enjoy the films presented in the second collection of short films. Here next to me in the online world, we have Cristi Mărculescu, our festival friend, the Romanian film critic.
Hello.
Andrew Mosen, my colleague from the curatorial team from Egypt. And of course, Anton Grove, sorry, the director of Opinci, My Father's Shoes, the Romanian short animation. And we have the producer and the director for the film The Letter Reader, Kati Wainek, and Sibusiso Kuzuayu. I hope I didn't say wrong your names. Thank you so much again, because it's a pleasure to discuss with the authors after watching a film, not only about those films, because a film I think should stay also in with us, a time, and then to speak about the films, but also to know you more, to know more things about you. And I will let Cristi to continue, because yeah, sometimes I'm so enthusiastic that I should also listen to you, because that's why you are here. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. We're close in the online thing, but we're very far apart from each other. It's very nice to be here, and this short selection, the second part of it, which some of you are responsible for creating it, the other are responsible for curating it, for putting it together, is very interesting, because it's so diverse. It's stylistically speaking, we don't have two movies that are almost the same. Thematically also, it's very different. It's nice to see so many different things, and as Mirana said, getting to know you and let's say your ideas and motivations for these short films is very important. So without you being shy in any kind, I would like for you to tell us, let's say, the story of the film, how you came up with the idea. What was the most difficult part of it? Because we all know coming up with short films might seem easy for somebody, but it actually is not easy at all. And we'll take over the conversation and have some questions after each of you introduce yourselves and tell us the story of the film and whatever you think we should know about this creative process. And yeah, let's just start. Who wants to start? Who's brave? Okay, do you want me to actually select you? Will that be okay? Ah, hello, Mr. Grooves.
Yeah, let me start. I'll start then. I mean, I'm the first on the list, but I guess everyone is first on their own list. So, well, I mean, the idea for our short film came to us. Actually, it was based. Our film was based on a true story, so it's based on a character. A man who lived more than 100 years ago, and his story, his amazing story, was brought to light by a very good friend of mine who found out, who read an online article from a local news service in Buzău. And the article told a story about this guy called Dumitru Dan, who had this amazing journey. Basically, he was a student in Paris back in 1910, together with some colleagues of his, and there was a competition a globe-trotting competition. Basically, it was set up by the Touring Club of France, and this competition, it basically offered 100,000 francs to those who would complete 100,000 kilometers on foot around the world. So basically, it was this kind of globe-trotting challenge, which Dumitru Dan, he took up with his 3 friends. And what ensued, what followed was an amazing journey, and a very dramatic one for him. I mean, he set off with his friends. He trained. They trained and prepared for the journey. Their intention was to earn their survival while they were traveling by doing the traditional Romanian dance, the călușăria. This is what the name of it is. It's basically traditional Romanian dance and traditional Romanian costume, and wearing the traditional Romanian sandals, which are called opinci, which is the title that we gave to the short film. Over the space of 6 years, his journey, was kind of tainted by many tragedies. All 3 of his colleagues died along the way. Each one in weirder and stranger circumstances than the next. One of his colleagues died in China, fell off a cliff, and the other of an overdose in India of opium, and the third one in America after crossing the Bering Strait. He got gangrene, and he basically died of the infection. If that wasn't enough, Dumitru Dan, he had to stop his journey before he completed the 100,000 kilometers. He had to stop his journey because of the First World War. So he waited another 6 years. And then when he finally completed the journey, he went back to France to collect his prize, which unfortunately had lost its value because of the inflation. So he ended up making hardly any money at all from it, and he lost his 3 friends. But obviously he still, in the face of this adversity, he still managed to complete his journey. And for me, me and Damien, and for Bogdan, the screenwriter, we were all incredibly shocked that this story, no one knew about this story. No one seemed to know about this story. I'm talking about, outside of Romania and also locally, no one had heard about this story. So we thought, this really needs to be told. It needs to be put on the screen. And so we went about thinking how we could do that. Obviously, it was very complicated to think of it as a live action because of recreating the world of 1910 in all and literally the world, because he visited so many countries. It was an impossible thing to do. So we decided that animation was the only way that we could actually do this and do it justice. And so we decided to approach it like that. But what was interesting is that we actually, we made some research. It being obviously a true story, we made some research into the story, and we managed to find out that Dumitru Dan's daughter was still alive at the time. So me and Bogdan, we went to visit her. We went to visit his daughter, and we made an interview with her. Which is, at that point, it was more just to find out more about the story and to try and to look for an angle on the story. And what was interesting is that we found it. I mean, we kind of realized that it would be wonderful to tell the story from her point of view as a child, because when her father would tell her these stories, she wouldn't believe them, or she would think that they were kind of fairy tales. The story of his journey were just these kind of bedtime stories that he would tell her. So we decided that this was definitely, a very interesting and emotional approach to the film, an emotional perspective to his journey. And it also allowed us to kind of jump through his long journey, which could probably easily fill, more than one feature film. But obviously, choosing just to do a short film, we decided that it was the perfect way that we were able to jump through the story and get this kind of emotional perspective upon it. And it was funny because in the end, we decided to actually include her interview at the end of the film because it was so emotional and so such an amazing kind of insight. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's actually the way that we end the film. So yeah, I mean, that's basically how the film came about. I mean, obviously then, we spent a bit of time, quite a lot of time, getting funding to make it, and then obviously animating, and it was a very, very long process. But after 6 years, we have from the very beginning of hearing the story to now. Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey for us as well, almost. I mean, it's been great that the film has almost followed in its protagonist's footsteps, and it's travelled the world, and it's been in lots of festivals. Unfortunately, we haven't gone with it because of the current pandemic situation. But the film has done the travelling for us.
Well, that's very nice because I knew the story because I know the film, and the thing is that it's wonderful to see some Romanian animation because you are somehow in this moment of bloom for Romanian animation that was actually in existence for like 30 years. And also, I want to ask you about the aesthetic and, let's say, chromatic choices, because it's a wonderfully colorful film. It's unlike anything we're accustomed to in Romanian animation and in Romanian cinema. It's this vision that is extremely modern. It's how did you work this graphic side of the film?
I mean, it's interesting because we always intended from the very beginning to separate the two worlds. There's this parallel storyline that goes throughout the film. There's, the story with the father and the daughter. This is Dumitru Dan after he's finished his journey, and he's a single father. So there's that world which we wanted to make it very kind of low contrast and a bit kind of stark and a bit bleak and a bit kind of dusty and kind of to stand in stark contrast to the stories, to the story of his journey with his friends, which we wanted to make it really colourful and exotic and to almost be an expression of the little girl's of Steliana's imagination, of how she imagines the journey that he's taking as he's telling her the story. So we immediately realized that we wanted to use two different techniques of animation. For the exotic world, we chose to do this 3D, 2D approach, colorful and very kind of fluid and dynamic because we wanted to do justice to all the different places around the world, the different cultures. And I think that was the only way to really do it justice. Obviously it was musical and the dancing, so it had to be this kind of dynamic, colorful, exotic world. And the world of the father and the daughter, we initially intended to use puppet animation and stop motion to make puppets. So we did some tests there, and we quickly realized after doing the tests and also after kind of reaching somehow an end of the funding process that we didn't really have the money to approach it the way that we planned to. We didn't have the money to make puppet animation, or really the expertise to do it properly and to spend that much time in the studio animating puppets. So we decided a different approach. We decided to actually use pixelation, which is animating with people. And we decided to to dress real actors, to dress them up in puppets and make them look like they were small miniature stop motion puppets, and to trick the viewer in a way, to give them that kind of slightly stiffer movement, to use tilt shift lenses to get a slow depth of field. So it really felt like you were looking on this miniature world. So we miniaturized the world, real life in a way. And luckily it really worked for us. And we were very lucky also to find a wonderful location in the mountains, in the Carpathian Mountains. We found this wonderful house that was untouched. It was frozen in time, literally. So we immediately realized that that's what we were going to do. We were going to do this kind of puppet animation using real people, and instead of 2 months of animation in a studio, it took us a week to film that part of the story. Which was great, and it helped us a lot, and it really gave us the look, an interesting look, a new look somehow. Through these limitations, somehow we managed to find a new look and to discover kind of an interesting new technique. It was complicated after because we planned to animate the faces, the eyes, and the facial features in 3D. And that really took a long time, and that took a year of tracking, 3D tracking, and it was really laborious, and technical heavy kind of way of doing it. Also, because we hadn't done it before, we made a couple of mistakes. And that kind of added, many months on hours onto the work. But luckily, we managed to drag it out of, just pull it out of the box after a long time. And there we have the two different approaches somehow.
I know you had some live action films with real actors, and this is your first animation. So somehow, don't be hard on yourself, because you worked enormously for it and to correct all the things. But I'm curious, are you considering doing another animation using what you learned, or trying new stuff in animation? Because as you said, it's sometimes the only feasible and decent way to bring justice to a subject. What with the story there is like a Netflix series with an enormous budget and like 20 episodes, and animation actually gave you this shortcut that is not easy, but it does justice to everything. Would you do another animation?
Well, I mean, it's funny that you asked that, because we are actually, I mean, after doing Opinch and somehow breaking onto the animation scene, as you will, the local animation scene. We've me and Damien, we've become interested in this hybrid approach to animation, and using a live action approach, using filming, and finding new ways of combining it with animation. And we're actually in development now. We're in development for our debut feature, which is another hybrid animation. It's not in the same style or technique as Opinch. It's not that we're no longer trying to emulate stop motion, but it's a kind of it's a hybrid animation, but it's much more up to date. It's way more 2021. It's way more dynamic, but again, it's a combination of live action and animation. And literally now, I was just telling Milonka, now I just finished a week-long workshop with the C Animation Forum, which was basically we were there developing the film. So we've got another 4 sessions this year, And so we're hopefully gonna, by the end of it, we're gonna be able to develop and start to build funding for our debut feature. So yeah, I mean the answer is yeah. We somehow Film Opinch we've gone deeper. And yeah, I mean we're now developing our debut feature, which is animation, but it's a hybrid. It's a combination of the two.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because yeah, it's one of the best interesting things to do in cinema now. The FX reached the peak, and the animation is actually still superior because you can do whatever the hell you want if you have, of course, the skill and the competence to correct and to wait for it to be properly done. Thank you very much. Can we go to Sibusiso? Are you with us? You are the next on the list.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. Hi. So how the idea of the letter reader came about is I read a book called The Dream Deferred. It's a biography on the life of our former president, Thabo Mbeki. So there is a small section in that book, I think it's about a page, or so, that speaks about, Thabo Mbeki reading letters, as an 8-year-old boy, reading letters for illiterate villagers, So for me, even when I continued reading that book, my mind sort of like stuck on those few pages, of this small boy reading letters, to elderly people, getting intimate, with elderly people and getting to know maybe some of the things that is not even supposed to know. So I think from there, after reading the book, it sort of like germinated in this idea, because I also feel that maybe I would say maybe a fertile ground on, having maybe that seed or that idea, germinating into this film, because of I share some of the experiences, having been raised, by a grandmother, because of when you watch the film, so this boy is taken, to live with his grandmother. So I share, those experiences with him, having been raised by a grandmother and having memories, of reading, not actually letters, but announcements, community announcements, having to read for her because of she couldn't read. So hence I say maybe at the time when I read the book, maybe I was sort of like a fertile ground, for that idea to sort of like germinate into a film. So, but the problem is, even when I had this idea of turning, this small idea that I had into a film, the problem is I didn't have any experience. I had never shot a film. I'd never written a film. So I approached a couple of friends that I knew, because at the time already I was working in the television industry by doing TV shows. So at the company that I was working at, there were people that were already writing your TV dramas and films. So I approached some of them, asking for help to say, I've got this idea. Can you please help me to write it for me, turn it into a script, but everyone was so busy, and at the end, because of this thing was burning me, because of I wanted to see this idea, coming into life. So I ended up, taking a chance, writing the script, went into YouTube, watched videos, read about script writing, and then eventually I managed to write a script, and through someone that is experienced in script writing, I got the mentorship. Her name is Marina Becker, so she's very much experienced in script writing. So she got the script, and she was so impressed, especially for a person that is inexperienced, and it was my first attempt. So she thought, the script she thought it's good, and she offered to mentor me throughout the whole process of, making sure that, we turn the script into a very great script. So I think you also mentioned, you also wanted to know about the difficulties of making maybe these films. So having finished the script, especially when you are so naive, you don't have any experience of making films. So for you to finish a script, and it feels like such a huge achievement because of years of script, and you feel like, you can shoot it tomorrow. But I realized that it doesn't work like that. You need funding. And at some point I thought, I can just grab some few friends and we can just get a camera and shoot it, but I realized that, it takes a lot, to make a movie. So I think that's where the help of my producer who's also joining us. I think I'm going to let her come in here because of without people like her, it would have been impossible for me to make this film because of they carried me, I stood on their shoulders, so throughout the process, now I feel that, yes, I'm called a director, and a writer, but without people like her, I wouldn't be where I am, being invited in platforms like this to be able to share about my experiences of making this film. So we had a lot of challenges, but when we have experienced producers like her, then it becomes easier. So I think at this point, maybe I would hand over to Kati to talk us through maybe some of the challenges that we faced into making The Letter Reader.
Thanks, Sibusiso. Sibusiso is very humble, but she's a real talent. So it's been a privilege working with Sibusiso through this process, because by the time the script kind of arrived on our desks, it was like, wow, this is an exquisite script. And then we realized that we didn't want to make this film on no budget, but it still took us it was like nearly 2 years, 18 months, 2 years to raise this money. And it wasn't a huge amount of money. We ended up, making the film for about 25,000 euros. But it meant that we had to sacrifice a lot to try and get it made. And also, especially as we were looking for very specific cast all over the country, and that's where Sibusiso's eye, in terms of being a performance director, was very, 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 very important. And the idea was simply that, based on the fact that it's such a strong script, that and as a first-time director, what we needed to do is just to put in place some strong HODs, strong production designer and a strong DOP. And, again, it was about people reading the script that just touched so many, because it's a universal story about how a boy can come into a small village and just change the lives of so many people. And also the lovely humor of how Sibusiso captured these moments on screen. So, the thing is that at the end of the day, I, as a producer, work with many different directors. But I will say again that Sibusiso is a very rare talent, in that none of the more experienced team members had to kind of, pull him along or anything. He was, in my opinion, ahead of his peer group, even the elders on that team. So, and editing the film at the end of the day as well. But yeah, the circumstances of making the film were hard, but we got to shoot it in the environment where the story was originally set, which is in KwaZulu-Natal, which is sort of deep Zululand mountains. And so, and even in that community, even though it was, kind of, we set it in the sort of 1970s, it felt like the world hadn't changed since then. And in terms of the relevance of the story, I think it's not about the past. It's about, kind of the power of a small child being able to change the world. So I must say, for me as a producer, yes, we all kind of like, we indie producers. So it means it's very, it's difficult to raise finance or raise money for any project. But I'm just delighted that the film has traveled this far. It's done very well at various film festivals, and Sibusiso's just finished writing a new script. We're getting ready for a full-on feature film, this, it's just amazing how a project like this can touch so many people. Thanks. So any other questions you have to free?
Well, that was one of the questions. If you have another project going on, the two of you, but you already answered it. And yeah, I would like us to go back and talk to the director, because I never imagined it's his first film. I never considered this first film. And yeah, as you said, it's a matter of talent, but it's also interesting to hear from him. What were the mistakes he learned while shooting this film? Because yeah, everybody makes mistakes, especially with the first films, even if they don't appear in the final film. Yeah, they are there. What's the most important thing or things he learned by his mistakes while shooting this film?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. I would say I don't remember much of the mistakes, that maybe I would say that I made, but it was a thing of, where you think you've prepared, and you have a script and you sort of like visualized how everything is going to come out, and then when you get to set, and you get to shoot, and then things change, so I think for me, maybe one of the lessons that I learned, was that because of, I had this vision, so sometimes maybe I would want to stick on what I'd written, maybe being persistent to think that, things need to happen exactly the way I've written them, but I think I was so fortunate to be surrounded by people that were more experienced than me, that maybe, for example, the DP that I had, Lance Giver. I mean, he's an award-winning DP. He shot Tsotsi, a film that won an Oscar. So without having much experience of how things work on set, for me, so I would panic, for example, when we had rain on the second day. So I would say maybe that was a mistake, because of I believe in creating, a very good energy on set. So for me, when it started raining, I sort of like became pessimistic, and usually that kind of energy can sort of like, influence, some of the other people that are there. So maybe it's something that I learned, that, even with the challenges that you face, you always need to be optimistic, because of everyone is looking up to you. So to have someone like Lance Giver, who sort of like always pulled me along, in circumstances like that, to say, yes, maybe this scene you wanted it to take place maybe under a tree, with the sun. Now it's raining, what do we need to do now? So, I mean, when it comes to that, it was very important, because of now, even when I watch the film, I'm so amazed, at some of the things that I didn't plan, because of, for me, like, everything was very sunny, some of the scenes that we shot inside, were meant to be exterior scenes, but because of the rain and the change of weather, having someone like Lance, and having producers like Kat, they helped me in terms of coming up with solutions to say, you need to think on your feet, you need to adapt, to every curveball, that is being thrown at you. So I think for me, maybe the biggest mistake, I would say maybe being pessimistic, because of at that time when I started becoming pessimistic, I could see that, sort of like the energy that we had at the beginning was starting to drop, but having people that were more experienced than me, they were able to pick me up, and everyone was like, you know what, we're doing it. And at some point, I remember we were rushing, because and everybody gets, amazed when I say we shot this film in 3 days. So in first day, we had, it was sunny, it was nice, everything went well. But on the second day, it started raining. And then on the third day, it was raining the whole day. So I remember, like some of the scenes, like we're running up and down, trying to make sure that we have everything happen within the budget. As Kati mentioned, that, the budget that we had, was very small. So we didn't have any room for pickups, and also because of we're shooting it in a very remote area. So meaning that, we had to travel with the crew, everyone had to be booked accommodation. So there was no room, for dropping any scenes, you know, so for me to have a team, you know, like the team that I had, it was such a blessing, you know, because of we're able to finish all the scenes. We didn't drop any scenes, you know, we're running, you know, trying to make sure that, you know, all the scenes that we needed for the film were shot. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, but sorry, I have only 3 days. Did you have for the shooting? 3?
Yes, yes, we shot it over 3 days, yes.
So, but next time we should do a masterclass with you. It's amazing. It's unbelievable, almost. Yeah. Oh, congratulations. It's but how come? I mean, also, Kati, you have to share this secret how to do in such short time such amazing film, because it's yeah, I don't understand. Yeah. Thank you. Congratulations again.
No, I mean, for us, we you know, we've got, as South Africans, we're very lucky. We've got amazing crew, very strong crew, and you know, we hit the ground running every day. And you know, nobody was there on holiday. You know, everyone was working full out. You know, I, as the producer, was doing some extra catering, and I was driving actors up and down from, you know, whether it was down from Joburg, 600 kilometers back down and up, and you know, I'm not talking about just. I think everyone made sacrifices because they loved the script so much, and the, you know, the acting team, we'd rehearsed very well, and you know, we'd arrived I think, was it a day or two before, but I mean, it was a day before. We did like a location scout. And but I mean, we had, like, you know, had sort of done the scouting a few weeks before that, but it's kind of like a sense of pride that as you know, South Africans, we've made some beautiful films at you know, at very low budgets, and yes, we have unions, and we look after crew, but it's just a kind of a spirit of people to come on board and do things together. And basically, you know, we don't, short films are very difficult at the end of the day, because it's not about making money back. We all knew we were never going to make money back. That's the bottom line. We knew we were making a calling card for this very beautiful director who deserved a break. And we over the moon that, you know, it's 2 years later nearly that it's happened. You know, it's a fact that Sibusiso is now just, you know, is a director. There's no two ways about it. Nobody can question that. So again, it's congratulations to him.
Okay, can you share us, if it's not a secret, let's say the subject of the feature you are preparing?
Sibusiso must answer that one.
Oh, okay. So I would say, yeah. So the film we're working on, it's also similar to the letter reader in terms of, I would say, maybe the texture and tone, you know, because I'm drawn more into stories of, you know, coming of age, you know, stories that are set in a village. So the feature that we are working on, it is also set in a village. It's also about a young boy, just like, you know, the protagonist on the letter reader. But this time around, the boy is white, you know, so he lives in a Black community, you know. So I know it sounds, yeah, it's one of those strange ideas. So yeah, so we're busy. I'm busy now with development, and Kati is helping me, you know, with, you know, putting the script together, you know. So because of it, it's one of those where, especially, you know, like I said, that, you know, I didn't have any training. I didn't go to a film school, and Letter Reader was my first film. So diving into a feature, it's like, you know, it's such a very difficult thing. You know, I'm so much into it. It's being thrown into a deep end, you know. So, but with the help of people like Kati and my script editor and my mentor, I'm able to swim, even though I can feel that, it is very much difficult. It's not like a short film where, 22 pages you are done. But now when you have to make a feature, even your insecurities, even your inexperience, shows, but I think I'm gonna pull through with the help of the people that are surrounding me.
Of course, yeah. Thank you very much for being with us, and best of luck with developing it. If you are just as efficient with shooting it as you were with this one, yeah, it might take 10 days, right? To shoot. Okay. And now, Andrew, are you with us?
Yes, always.
Yeah, somebody made a joke about doing things like a spiritism or seance when you always ask, are you with us? Are you with us? Yeah, can we have a few words, an introduction for Vard's Hana Party? Hana Party?
Yes, but what? Actually, this is the first film of Murad Mustafa as a director. He is working as a assistant director, I think, for about more than 10 years. The film was premiered in last year's Clermont-Ferrand, and it has a great tour, actually. It went to more than 100 film festivals, which is an amazing number, especially when we look at in the coronavirus time, which there were many festivals canceled. So I don't know if it was in the normal state how many festivals it would go. I believe, what?
Okay, it's a story that's fascinating because somehow, to me, it feels like Romanian cinema. It's a family indoors, lots of talking, small conflict, mapping the relationships and sympathies and antipathies in the family and all this. But it's very different because it brings the henna artist, the woman who does the decorations. And
Yes.
This is something that you most probably know way more about than I do. Is this something that happens traditionally a lot? Is it something very specific? How does this this work?
No, it happens actually in many families. The 1 or 2 days before the wedding, the woman draws henna on their bodies, and sometimes the Sudanese women are better in this, in the drawing thing, I mean, as we've seen in the film. It's actually more common in the local areas in Egypt, more than the higher classes. And he chose the place to be like this, and the characters and the family. Actually shooting one of the very well-known, like, how can I say, very old place in Egypt, and also it's not one of the classes places there. And by the way, most of the actors are not professional and not actors, especially the one, the main actress who played the character of Halima. She's not an actress.
It's a very interesting film because there is so much conflict going on, and it's not an open conflict. It's the small conflicts, like they're so different class. You can tell they're different class.
Yeah.
And there are all these things that are not, I would not say it's social critique. I would say it's social representation of some things that go on. Like the small dialogues about the guy who's poor and just bought some soda or water or beer or whatever it was. It's very interesting because it gives you a perspective on some bigger things without pushing very hard on them. It's clear but subtle in the same way. Is this I mean, this way of showing one episode from a family life in order to represent more about Egypt society common for short films in Egypt? Is it something that's done often, or is this something new, or how does it fit in the general short film landscape?
No, actually, I believe this one is very special. We don't have this type, if I can say, type of short films, which is very compact, and you feel it's very simple story, but beneath it there is a lot of ideas and a lot of things that you can discuss. We usually don't have this type of short films, very rare, and maybe one or two in each year. For example, yesterday we had a conversation with Sharif El-Bendari for his film. Sharif, from about 5 years, had another film which is similar in its way, like this one, called Hargaf Sci-Fi. I don't remember the English name. So we don't have this much in the short films, but I believe he had a huge step forward. And by the way, his second film was just premiered in Clermont-Ferrand also. What we don't know about Mariam, his second short film. And it also deals about, you can say it have the same atmosphere of this film, but more darker than this one. This one is still, you have something, in the beginning at least, something funny regarding the wedding. In the second film, it's more darker. But you mentioned a good point that how he deals with these characters and how the characters actually deal with each other, and especially the guy who is angry and who is shouting everywhere. And when we look deeply in this character, he actually do nothing right, and he have nothing to do actually. And it's funny how this guy is racist. When he looked to Halima in the first time, he say that she is African. Actually, we are Egyptians. We are African also. So how he's looking to this, and he doesn't know. He just wants us to be has a higher hand, even it is about the color. And when we continue the film, we see how this guy is the worst guy in the film and the worst character in the film.
Well, on one hand, yeah, he's the worst guy in the film, but it's the emotional thing is that nobody's actually a mean character or bad. Yeah, they can be pathetic in their self-image, and they can be bad because they're raped. But actually, it's a chain of small flaws that causes something that we don't know if it's a terrible crisis, but it's not good.
Yes.
Now we have some questions here on the chat, and I will go to the chat. Let's see, hop. Well, we have one question for Anton. Anton, are you still with us?
I am, yes, indeed I am. Yes, I was just reading it now.
We also, okay, so the question is, you're reading it.
Mm-hmm.
But we should also read it for everybody, and if people listen to us and don't have access to the chat, so yeah, let's read it. The reasons for dropping stop motion, were they only financial? If you had the necessary funds, would you have shot the entire film in stop motion?
No.
It's a good question.
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, definitely not. You know, we always intended to shoot half of the film, to make half of the film with 2D, 3D animation. You know, with the journey around the world, that was always intended to be 2D, 3D animation, because of the ability to animate it, you know, very dynamically and create all kinds of exotic characters and landscapes. You know, it was a lot easier to do that. You know, the other half, though, yes, we did intend to do stop motion. I mean, you know, but the decision wasn't only financial. I mean, I think because, you know, as I said, we made a test of that part of the story. You know, we got in these little puppets, these stop motion puppets, and you know, we tried to do the animation. But we felt that it wasn't, you know, obviously, you know, not having the experience as animators before, you know, we felt that it was very difficult to get that nice fluid motion, walking cycles and all the rest of it. We felt that it was too complicated, to do it properly, and we couldn't stay that long. We just couldn't stay that long in the studio. It would have meant 2 months of staying in the studio. So we kind of we had the idea of approaching it the other way, because we came from a live action background. We've always been used to doing live action work, and so we started to think, how can we do this perhaps using the knowledge that we already know? How can we come from that angle? How can we come from the world of live action and attack the world of animation and try and and that's why we kind of decided. So yes, it was also a financial thing, but I think it was also because it was also an experience thing, and just trying to find an interesting solution, and using the limitations that we had and the experience that we had to arrive at a solution. So yeah, I mean, it was partly a financial, but it wasn't all financial.
Okay, I hope Yorgos, who asked the question, has his answer. I haven't. And you have another question just came up. How much did you actually work on the animation? I think this means how long did it take just to animate it?
With the animation, I mean, the 2D, 3D part, it took a good 2 years to model. I mean, from storyboarding, animatics, to modeling, animating and rendering. It was a kind of a full 2 years. The pixelation part, the stop motion part that we did with live actors, that took us a week to shoot. So it took 7 days to shoot that, and then another kind of a year to do all the tracking and animating the facial features and doing everything. But I mean, saying that, it wasn't a year of non-stop work. It was kind of, I mean, if you would group everything together, because at that moment in time, the team that were working on that were also doing a whole load of other projects. That was kind of it, because it wasn't foreseen. It wasn't something that we'd planned, and so we had to fit it in somehow. But all grouped together, that probably would have been, I'd say, around 3 months. 3 months of solid work there. So yeah, I mean, 2 years and then a week of shooting and then 3 months on that stuff. So yeah, kind of that was the time scale that we worked on.
Okay, thank you. We have another question coming for Sibusiso. Are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. It's a question about working with your protagonist as a kid, and kids have a reputation of being very hard to work with in films. So tell us how it went. I would suppose it went good because you had only 3 days, and yeah, he's good in the film. But how did you work with him? How did you find him actually?
Okay, so it was a pleasure working with Bahle Mashinini. So it was not difficult at all, because of, I think also what helped is the work that we did, in the casting process, because of we auditioned, a lot of kids, and there are so many kids that were talented that we saw, but for me, I was looking for something that is beyond just being, an actor or giving, a good performance. So beyond just having them, read the lines or, perform certain scenes, so I would just engage them, try to get their understanding of the character and also try to get, their mindset. So for me, I think Bahle Mashinini stood out from all the talented kids that we saw. So, but even though I was satisfied with him, that he can deliver, but I was worried also because the story or the script has minimal dialogue. So much of it, relies on, the actor emoting for the camera and stuff, So for me, that became something that I was anxious about, because sometimes you can watch something, but the camera sees something else, So for me, us not having enough budget meant that we didn't have money for rehearsals. So we didn't rehearse at all, but at least, we're able to get one day just to rehearse with the boy. So even though I didn't rehearse with the rest of the cast, but we're able to squeeze in just one day just to rehearse with the boy and just to spend a day with him. So for me, that day was a big revelation for me, because of we talked, we spoke about, what he loves, So for me, that's when I saw that, he is beyond just being, a good actor, but he's an intelligent, kid. So and also his understanding of the character, it's something that really moved me, that, he also gave me some insight, into the character, because sometimes you would write something, and then you have an actor that would give you more insight, as the one that wrote the story, but some actors have that ability of giving you more insight into the characters that you wrote. So Bashe was one of those, so when I engaged him and we rehearsed the scenes, I became confident, now I know that we can deliver, but I was still anxious that, I would love to see on the monitor, I would love to see what I'll be seeing there, because of now what maybe I see now might not be what the camera sees, but when we got on set, it was such a pleasure. It was such magical, watching him, perform. And maybe to go back to, I don't know if maybe this, I would class it as a mistake, but one of the things that happened, and maybe Katu would kill me for revealing this, is that, so there was a scene, I think there's a scene where you see his parents leaving him and he's sitting, outside watching the car drive away, and is very emotional. So there is a take, that we lost, I don't know how we lost it. Maybe when we're transferring clips and whatnot, maybe it's one of the mistakes we did. So we lost that clip. So on that take, I think it was the first take. I think it was the second take, because it did the first take that on the film. So on the second take, when we're recording it, so as the car leaves, and no one was expecting it, and we saw tears, coming out from his eyes, and he started crying, and no one was expecting it because of it was not on script, but for me that showed the depth, that this kid had, and I remember, even when I called cut, there was a silence, for a good 30 seconds or so, because of everyone was amazed, at this boy, but the sad thing is, that take, we lost it and it didn't make it into the film. So working with Ubahle was such a pleasure. It was not difficult at all working with him.
And
Okay.
what he said, just the last question from my side, what he said after he watched the film, he enjoyed it, and it was as he expected, or he was surprised of something?
He was so surprised. I think it exceeded his expectations, because of, and of which I understood, because of, he's at the time, I think he was 12 or 13, so much as he understood the story, I don't think he understood the whole character arc, and the whole story arc, so I think, and I remember that at times, even when we're shooting, he would ask me questions, about some of the decisions or some of the things that I wanted him to do, and I would explain to him, but I would see that maybe he's not understanding them, because of, I feel that as much as he understood the story, maybe some of the deeper meanings of what, what we implied with the script, maybe he didn't fully grasp them, So I remember, because of the first time, I think he watched it at some, at a film festival, and we're together, and he came to me and he was so emotional, and he was like, yo, this exceeded my expectations. And now I realize, some of the things that you wanted me to do, and I had some questions, but now they make so much sense to me, because of even the ending. He was so blown away by the ending, because of, he's the one that was driving the story, but how the story ended, it touched him so much, but at the time when he was performing, he was only focusing on that scene, making sure that he delivers the performances for that scene. So to answer your question, I think it exceeded his expectations, he was so surprised, and yeah.
Well, Mirana?
Yes, I think we should stop. I enjoy so much this discussion. I think I will stay more, but I just saw it's 8:15, so it's time to say goodbye, but before, I would like to say to the audience that they can, if they miss this collection of shorts, then they can see tomorrow at 4 o'clock on Festival Scope. So don't forget that we stay as in cinemas at precise times with the screenings and just a short window of time. So be sure that you are there at 4 o'clock. And then you can see the third collection of shorts, and we will have, of course, again, a discussion with the crews. And if you want, you can also join us at 11 o'clock at the cocktail, the Romanian cocktail on Zoom. More information on our Facebook page. Thank you so much, and watch the films because they are there